All right, now that we have Space Fighter behind us, let's move on to a new subject. Over the next couple of videos, we're going to take a look at how we can develop games or port our games from Windows over to the world of the Xbox 360 console. So in this video, we're going to focus on how we can go about getting the Xbox 360 set up in such a way that we can come into Visual Studio and deploy an Xbox 360 game over to the console itself. From there, in the next video, we're going to demonstrate how we can take Space Fighter and make a few adjustments in such a way that we can continue coding on Space Fighter, but compile it for Windows, or turn around and compile it for the Xbox 360 and deploy it to the Xbox 360. But basically, both systems, if you will, Windows and Xbox 360, will be sharing the same code base, so that if we make a change for the Windows world, that same change will show up over in the Xbox 360. But again, in this video, we're going to focus on what we need to do to get our Xbox 360 set up and ready to handle games being deployed to it from Microsoft Visual Studio.
Alright, the first thing that I'd like to point out is that we will be using a video capture card to show what is being seen on the Xbox 360. So when we view the Xbox screens from this capture software, you'll note that the screen will look somewhat squashed. This is simply a limitation of where we need to get everything squashed onto a screen that we can capture.
That's right, and please keep in mind we're also recording and encoding at 10 frames a second, and because of that, the playback is going to look just a bit choppy. So as Logan just flips through a couple of the tabs there, you'll notice that the redraw is very slow, but I just want to make sure everybody understands what's going on.
But this will indeed allow us to follow and trace the process step by step in order to get this Xbox set up and running with Visual Studio.
All right, so what do we do first? I know, we spend some money.
That's right, we're going to need a membership to the XNA Creators Club to be able to publish to the Xbox 360. It should be noted that you can actually download the necessary application onto the Xbox before you purchase a membership. It will simply require an active membership for your account in order for it to successfully launch.
So where do we get this membership from?
Well, we get it from inside of the game store inside of Xbox Live. I'm going to get to the game store by first going to the games library. And you can, of course, also gain access to this area via the marketplace. But since we're already under the Games tab, we'll just jump down under Games Library and then go to the Games Store. Inside of Games Store, we're going to go all the way down to the section for More. From here, we're going to switch over to Genres. And inside of Genres, we're going to select Other. Now inside of Other, a list of stuff will load. I'll jump up instead of scrolling down to the list, and that will jump us to the very bottom. And we can see that the item listed here is XNA Creators Club. If we load this section, we see a few items. We see Memberships, XNA Game Studio Connect, and XNA Game Launcher. Memberships is where you're going to need to go to purchase the actual membership to the XNA Creators Club. And you can see here that we have already purchased one of these options.
And there are two options, the first one being the annual one, which is $99, and the other one is, 6 months? No, 4 months at $49. So that's the two different options that you can choose from. So obviously the better deal is the $99 ones if you're going to, spend a bit of time creating games for the Xbox 360.
Now, once you have either of these purchased, you're then free to run either the XNA Game Studio Connect or the XNA Game Launcher. For our case, in order to get games set up, compiled, and deployed from Visual Studio, the application that we'll need is the XNA Game Studio Connect. So we'll jump into this, and we will select Download. In our case, it's going to read as Download again because this Xbox 360 has already at one point in time had this application installed. So we'll hit Download again to make sure that we get the application loaded up. And we'll just give it a few brief moments here while it transfers all the data.
Yeah, it's a very small download, a little bit over 8 megs.
So it doesn't take long at all.
No.
But once this finishes, we should be able to jump down. We'll just say continue. This will leave us back in the store, and then I'll back all the way back out of the game store, menu by menu, until we're back inside of the games library. From inside of the games library, I'll jump up to the My Games section, and I'll jump down to the very bottom, again using the shortcut to jump up to wrap back around to the bottom, and you'll note the XNA Game Studio Connect application is listed here under All Games. If we jump into the XNA Game Studio Connect and then launch the game, we'll give it a few moments to load up, and we should be presented with the first screen that's going to allow us to make the connection between our PC and our Xbox 360. Once it has successfully logged into Xbox Live, it's going to display a key here at the bottom of the screen, and this is the identifier that we'll need once we're inside of Visual Studio. So for now, this is as far as we can go on the Xbox 360 side of things, so let's turn our attention over to Visual Studio, and let's see both how we can get the PC connected to the 360, and how we can go ahead and set up an example application and deploy that to the 360. We're going to begin with a new project, and I'm going to select Xbox 360 game for XNA 2.0. I'll leave the name Xbox 360 Game 1 since this is only a temporary test application. We'll hit OK to this, and we'll see what is largely a familiar set of things. We've got a solution set up with a project that contains a Game 1 class. This Game 1 class contains some basic fields, a sprite batch, and will draw the standard cornflower blue background. Now, one thing I want to point out is when working inside of an Xbox 360 solution, we have a new tab that appears up on the toolbar. This includes things like a combo box that will let you select between different devices, a link to the XNA Game Studio Device Center, and the ability to jump directly in and add a new device. I'll also note that if you, for some reason, do not have this toolbar, you can also find these options inside of the Start Menu Program group for XNA Game Studio. Now, we're looking at code here, and we're inside of a new solution, so the first thing that usually comes to mind is to simply build and run a game. Let's see what would happen if we do that before we work out a connection to an Xbox 360. If we build, we get an error. We see that there is no Xbox 360 console available for deployment. And to rectify this, we're going to go into the Device Center and establish our connection. In our case, since we have the toolbar item active, I'm going to jump directly into the XNA Game Studio Device Center. Inside of here, I'm going to click the Add Device button, and we're first presented with a dialog that is asking for our Xbox 360's name. This name is simply for an identifier for yourself as the developer. This name can be anything that you would like. In our case, we're going to call it Buzz. This is useful if you have multiple 360s on which you develop. That way you can tag them each with a unique identifier and make them easier to select. We'll hit Next, and this will bring us to a screen that is looking for the key for the specific Xbox 360 console to which we wish to connect. And if you remember, inside of the Xbox Game Studio Connect application, we're presented with a key at the bottom of the screen. So I'm simply going to enter that screen into the connection window here. So give me a few moments while I type out this new key.
6N dash
QQUV2, and it will automatically drop the dashes in for you.
Oh, nice.
As a matter of fact, if you hit the dash key, you can't actually place anything other than alphanumeric characters.
You want me to just read it off to you?
Sure.
159B9 9SHRL 7714F. Nice.
All right, with that key in place, we'll hit Next. We'll wait a few moments while we look for the console, and we get the message saying that we have successfully connected to the Xbox 3 console, tagged as Buzz. Since this is the only console we have available, we have automatically selected to make this the default connection. We'll hit Finish. We'll see the Buzz Xbox listed in the Devices section, and we can now close the Device Center.
You can also tell that we've communicated with the Xbox because our key's gone away, and it now says Buzz.
So on the Xbox side of things, we've seen it acknowledge that connection. Now let's go back into Visual Studio and attempt to redeploy again. I'll hit F5, and we see at the bottom deploying has started. We'll give it a few moments, switch over to the Xbox, and we see that the screen has changed over to the familiar cornflower blue. Now, granted, this is the expected color for a blank XNA game, but let's go just a little bit further to prove that the content that we're creating is actually what is showing up on the Xbox. To terminate the program that's currently running, we can simply use whatever key will end the XNA game. By default, that would be back button on the controller, or inside of Visual Studio, we can simply stop debugging. If we stop from Visual Studio, you'll note that we are dumped back to the waiting for connection screen. Now inside of Visual Studio, let's do something that will have a small but noticeable visual effect. I'm going to set up a scenario where we can draw some text out to the screen. So I'll begin in the Contents of Project, and we'll add in a font. So I'll add in a new item. We'll use the standard Tahoma font that we've been using in past games. So we'll have a new asset named Tahoma.SpriteFont. We'll leave everything default, jump back into the game, and create a field in which we can save a reference to a sprite font instance. So let's make a sprite font field, which we can simply call font. Then we'll go down to the load content section of our game, and we'll load up our font. So font will be equal to content.load, type will be sprite font, and the asset name will be Tahoma. Now that we have a font instantiated, we can in turn use that in conjunction with the call to spriteBatch.drawString. So we'll turn our attention to the draw method. We'll take our sprite batch and we'll first make a call to begin. Then we'll turn around and make a call to drawString. And to drawString, we'll feed over the necessary parameters, beginning with the sprite font. That is our font field. The text that we'll write out to the screen will be something simple like, "Hello Xbox." The position will be just whatever vector we feel like putting in. I'll drop in a value of 100 by 100. And for a color, I'll give a color of white. That ends off our line for a drawString. We'll finish this up with a call to spriteBatch.end. And this should produce a noticeably different visual result. I'll hit F5 to build and deploy, switch back over to our Xbox screen. We'll give it a moment, and after deploying is complete, we can see that text appears on the screen. So we see that we are in fact affecting this. As a matter of fact, we're running the game on the 360 at will. Also, I'll point out here that if we wish, once again, we can use whatever key is bound inside of our game to exit, in this case the back button on the controller. If we hit the exit button, we notice in the background Visual Studio changed back to the standard development setting, and our Game Studio Connect screen has returned back to waiting.
Fantastic.
Now with all of this, that has covered all that we need to do to enable Xbox 360 development from within XNA Game Studio.
Okay. In the next video, we're going to take a look at how we can get the Space Fighter engine that we've put together deployed to the Xbox 360. Thanks a lot.